Hi everyone. Welcome to Secrets Behind the Stars. All the juicy details are inside this video, and if you enjoy it, hit like and subscribe. You can even support us more by tapping the join button below. Thank you for being here. Now let's dive in. The charity gala in Istanbul was supposed to glide along like any other polished evening of trophies and tuxedos, a cozy parade of famous faces and rehearsed gratitude, until one entrance rearranged the air in the hall. Even the most seasoned journalist couldn't have guessed how a single walk down a staircase would steal the night. No one expected Yağmur Yüksel to arrive the way she did, because nothing about what happened felt accidental, and nothing about it could be ignored. The doors to the event had just opened, and the ushers were still guiding guests to their tables when a hush swept through the grand foyer. It happened the moment a figure in snowy white appeared at the top of the central stairway, backlit by the chandelier's golden glow. Her heels touched the marble with a calm rhythm, and the sound seemed to stretch out like a line that pulled every eye upward. Murmurs fell away. Heads turned. Cameras lifted, ready. Within seconds, the rest of the gala faded into the background. It was her. It was Yağmur. She moved with a quiet certainty that made the scene feel like a memory forming in real time, and the vision she presented was unlike anything the hall's lights had held all evening. She wore white, not the simple, delicate white of an ordinary gown, but a creation that looked like it had slipped out of a dream. Handworked lace wrapped her silhouette, gauzy layers floated around her with effortless precision. Every step coaxed the smallest shimmer from tiny, almost invisible beads stitched into the fabric, each one catching the light and returning it like a promise. The effect wasn't just pretty. It was disruptive, like the first note of a song everyone knows by heart. People stopped talking not out of courtesy, but because something in them wanted to feel this moment without interruption. And then there was Baris Baktaş. He sat with the guests nearest the organizing committee, a few seats from the aisle, wearing the expression he uses when the cameras find him too quickly, composed, prepared, a trace of steel beneath the famous smile. He looked toward the entrance at the exact instant Yağmur crossed the threshold. Photographers caught him in a merciless freeze frame, a fraction of a second that showed victory and vulnerability living side by side in his eyes. The blink he delivered was as controlled as any he has given on stage, but it came with a small, unhidden tremor. Something unguarded touched his face. It was impossible to say whether it was surprise, or a memory pressing too hard against the present, but the moment traveled through the room like a low note in a cathedral. Those closest to him later swore they saw him shift in his chair, as if the ground had tilted by a degree only he could feel. Guests felt the temperature change. The headline writers did too, even though they were pretending nothing unusual was happening. Was that a look that asked a question? Was it regret? Was it relief finally exhaling? No one could agree, and yet everyone agreed on one thing: the history between them had just announced itself without words. The actress floated further into the hall, her hair softly wave-brushed, parted in a way that framed her face with the ease of someone who had finally made peace with her reflection. She didn't flinch under the bursts of flash. She didn't rush her steps or apologize for the space she occupied. If anything, she seemed to listen to a private rhythm, one that drew a line between who she had been and who she had become. The rumors that had been following her lately, of pressure, uncertainty, fragile footing, fell quiet like birds after a storm. If the past few months had asked difficult questions, this entrance looked like an answer. Of course, speculation bloomed almost instantly. People scrambled to figure out what statement, if any, the white gown meant. Was it a declaration, a re-beginning, a secret everyone else had missed? But within the hour, sources tied to the gala's production offered a pragmatic clarification. The look was part of a major global campaign, a collaboration that had been negotiated with meticulous discretion, the designer's name deliberately withheld at Yağmur's request. That explanation satisfied the facts, but it could not tame the symbolism. Everyone knew what they had felt, and no press note could erase the charge of meaning running through that satin and light. Across the room, Baris kept trying to put his expression back in order. He greeted people, laughed at the right lines, shifted politely for group photos. None of it could mask the way his gaze glanced back to her again and again, as if some unseen reel kept pulling him to the same frame. A reporter whispered that she saw him lose the thread of a sentence halfway through, his eyes finding Yağmur's and holding 1 second too long before he remembered he was supposed to speak. Another attendee said his posture changed by degrees as she moved through the crowd, the steady confidence still there, but tempered with something softer, a memory he didn't push away. It climaxed at the center of the hall, where they simply had to pass each other. The organizers had planned a neat flow to keep arrivals moving, but destiny, or the seating chart, made sure they shared the same narrow space at the same time. The room stilled again. No one dared to invent a greeting for them. No one forced a hug or a staged exchange. They just looked at one another, a look that carried years inside it, thin as a blade and gentle as the brush of a fingertip. She let a small smile flicker at the edges of her mouth, the kind you give someone who knows why you can't stay longer. He answered with the tiniest nod, a grateful acknowledgement, or perhaps a promise that he would not add a single rumor to her night. It lasted no more than a heartbeat. It lasted long enough to fill every social feed for days. By the time the first course arrived, the internet was already translating the moment. Clips surfaced, slowed down so that every blink felt like a confession. Fans posted side-by-side frames of Baris's eyes, convincing themselves they gleamed, that something unspoken had condensed into a tear that never fell. Others swore they saw restraint in Yağmur's glance, a woman carefully guarding the peace she had fought to reclaim. Comment sections turned into crowded living rooms, where strangers built theories and argued them like family members who loved to disagree. Some declared this was destiny tapping their shoulders and reminding them of unfinished business. Others insisted it was closure, not loud, not cruel, but clean and final, with respect folded into the silence. One line would set the tone for the rest of the week. After the awards segment, just before the final toast, a journalist slipped in a question between flashes, asking if the gown had any private resonance. Yağmur didn't bristle, and she didn't dodge. She took a breath and offered an answer that stopped time just enough to start another wave of interpretation. She said that white is the bravest thing you can wear when you have stopped waiting for someone to rescue you, and that sometimes you have to dress like the promise you made to yourself. The sentence went everywhere, not because it was scandalous, but because it felt like a door unlocking. People attached the words to photos, to montages, to fragments of interviews from years past. Instantly, it had a life beyond the chandelier's glow. What happened after the final applause moved through the hall belongs only to the short list of onlookers who were close enough to see it. A source who stood within earshot swears that when the room thinned and the noise smoothed out into the rustle of evening coats, Baris approached calmly, with the same measured grace that makes his public moments feel intimate. There was no clasping of hands, no long embrace, no asking for more than the night could give. He offered a quiet line, that she looked luminous, in a voice that sounded like relief and respect holding hands. She answered with a breathy laugh that the glow was hers at last. The exchange was tiny, a handful of words that somehow weighed as much as a long letter. And then they turned back into guests, into names on a seating chart, into two people who once mattered terribly to each other, standing under lights that didn't belong to either of them. From there, the story did what stories about them always do, it split and multiplied. For some, it was the final chapter snapping shut in an almost tender way. For others, it was the prologue of something waiting in the wings. The majority settled into a softer conclusion: some connections don't vanish. They evolve into recognition, into gratitude that doesn't demand a future. Photos of Yağmur in that impossibly gentle white continued to orbit the internet, her features warmed by the amber hue of the ballroom. The images replaced the shaky narratives of the past with something sturdier, a woman who had learned to anchor herself, and a man who could acknowledge that fact without trying to rewrite it. In the days that followed, there was one more ripple. Without mentioning her, without tagging anyone, Baris posted a line that felt like the echo of the evening, that some people remain a light on your road even when they're not walking beside you. It was simple, the kind of sentence that could mean everything or almost nothing, but in the wake of that night, it sounded like the truth. Commenters flooded in, decoding, celebrating, grieving the versions of the story they had once loved. That is how it always is with public romances. Even the quiet ones borrow a little thunder when they choose to say goodbye. There were no fireworks between them on stage. No kiss, no spectacle, no dramatic declaration. Just an understanding, captured in fragments, that admiration can outlive love, and respect can be the language two people speak when the world wants drama. And sometimes, when a woman dresses in white without asking anyone's permission, she isn't hinting at a ceremony, she's announcing a ceremony of one. A vow she made to her own reflection, honored in front of an audience that would remember the sight longer than any speech. Those who saw the moment in person will tell you that the room felt strangely lighter afterward, as if it had exhaled. Those who only saw it through the glass of a screen added their own meanings, as they always do. But somewhere between the flashbulbs and the final car pulling away into the Istanbul night, a true thing settled over the story. The past had been acknowledged without being invited back in. And there is a special kind of grace in that, a mature sort of tenderness that rarely makes headlines, even though it should. So, dear viewers of Secrets Behind the Stars, what do you make of this charged, wordless reunion between Yağmur Yüksel and Baris Baktaş? Do you feel the old spark still smoldering, or did you witness a beautiful farewell that both of them can live with? Which other Turkish celebrities do you want us to unravel here on our channel? Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your theories in the comments, and if you'd like to support our work further, tap the join button to become a special member of Secrets Behind the Stars. Thank you for watching. Until the next video, take care and goodbye.